Things to check when you are buying the Chanel classic flap. So many people drop so much money, and with the current situation where classic flaps, which are not as readily available compared to the previous times, they are much harder to get. And when you do get hold of one, you want to make sure that you really love and will cherish the bag, because this small classic flap size is currently at £7,000 as I'm recording this video. So you want to make sure that the stitching's correct, something that suits you, some things that you want to be made aware of, and I am here to deliver that to you. The first question I would say is the size. So what kind of size do you prefer? Do you like the small size like this one, or the medium? And you have the jumbo size and the matte, but also you have the mini versions, which you have a mini rectangular and a mini square. So depending on which size and which price point you are willing to spend, then you have the different sizes and the different price points with them. Noticing on this small classic flap, this is noticeable because if you count the diamonds, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you would know that this is a classic small. This would be the signature of the small classic flap. With the medium classic flap, you would have the 8 diamonds on here, so you have an extra diamond. But also another signature of the small classic flap is that you have this little unfinished stitch over here. So if you look at the corner, you would see the diamonds forming, but you can see that this is an incomplete diamond, and there would have been a stitch over here. That is a characteristic that this is a small classic flap, whereas the medium, they would show this characteristic but on the flap in itself. The next thing I would check is for the different hardwares. Sometimes you can get the champagne hardware like this one, and if you get the classic black color, then you would always get the gold hardware or the silver. You would never get it in the champagne gold hardware because that would never exist, and that would be a very key tell sign that this is a replica. So this pink color, I got it in the champagne gold because this is a seasonal color and it's just a very pretty one. And another thing to look out for is that the color of the hardware should match the color of the printing at the back. So this is a nice gold color right there, and this is matching the gold hardware of this bag. If you get the silver hardware, then the printing will be silver inside the bag. Another thing to look out for is the inside color of the bag. This is a seasonal piece, so the color matches the outside leather, so it's always the same pink to the outside pink. If you get the classic black color, the inside should be a really deep, rich burgundy red, and it's such a beautiful color. I love it so much. But then if you look at the more vintage black pieces, you can get a black interior too, so watch out for those. And I've seen some black bags with the black interior of recent design. Then we have the inside, where we have the first flap and then the inner flap. The inner flap does take up a lot of space, so it does reduce the size, and if you want to see more details about that, I have all the measurements done in this video up here, and inside it's a lot more tightly packed. So that is something to be aware of when you do buy this bag. The storage for this bag isn't as amazing as some other main great bags like the Lady Dior or the Business Affinity. Another thing that you should check on this bag is for the stitching. Now, it's not easy to count all the stitching with all the bags, and especially throughout the whole bag in the store, because this would take such a long time. But I would look at the edges, and especially on the sides where there could be potentially popped stitches. They do happen, and I would just carefully have a look at each of them. But another thing is that the stitches should be so frequent. I think if you count them here, there should be at least 7 stitches. If they don't have that many stitches, then it would come out as something a little bit more raw looking, and the stitching doesn't look as tidy. And another thing that I like to look for is the color of the stitching. It should be really closely resembling the leather of the bag. You don't have that contrasty look that you can get in some of the Chanel bags, especially in the replica market where they can get it quite wrong. Or there is just some bags in production that have a slightly off color, and it kind of puts me off because it doesn't look that luxurious anymore. Another thing that I wish I noticed when I got this bag is the strap. This nice interwoven leather, but if you look closely at the leather, you can see that there's an incomplete folding of the leather, and on the sides you can see that it's kind of picking up a lot of dirt in there, and it just doesn't look that attractive. Over time, this does have a little bit more of a not so pretty wear. That is something that is happening to more recent bags, so you do need to watch out for that. But for me, I wasn't too bothered, and it's just not something that really affects my judgment. On the inside, we have this stitch right there. and that is what holds the inner flap together. And on the back, you'll be able to see that there are these little dimples. What a lot of people do tend to say is that at the back there is a slip pocket, but I would advise not putting anything in there because this is not an intentional pocket. It's a side slit that just happened when making this bag to have this double flap. Otherwise, if they closed it all off, there would be a huge stitch going across the back. I would also want to mention that over here, there is a little slight dent in there because I do wear this bag without its protection. This zipper can tend to dent this little flap at the front, and you can actually protect this when you're storing it by using this felt, and you can get this from the store in itself. So mine came with it, and it will just protect that zipper from scratching that front flap. You can try ask the SA to keep those felt liners inside. Otherwise, you can buy any of these felt from online. And another thing to watch out for is the leathers. There are two main types of leathers. This is in caviar and there's another one in lambskin. Lambskin's always been the one that is told that is more scratchable, and it's not as easygoing as the caviar. Now, I'm not saying that caviar is indestructible either. This is just for superficial scratches. But if you do get little scratches, which they can happen, they can scuff. So I do have a little scuff here, but it's a very minor one. But it is to show you that caviar leather is not indestructible. It is just a little bit more easygoing when you wear wool coats, and then if you scratch using the wool, then it won't scratch up just the same way as the lambskin. So in terms of that kind of wear and tear, it's a lot more easygoing. There's another thing about caviar leather that can be a turn off, and it's the texture of the grain. So you can see here that is a little bit more raised, and then over here it's a little bit more shallow. So there's a difference in the grain texture, but also each of the caviars, they're not made the same. They do have some which are bigger grained, and especially in the black classic flap, whereas these more seasonal colors, they tend to go for more little grains, and I think that this little grain looks really pretty. But the other thing that I want to mention is that the sheen of this is a very shiny bag, and not all the caviar leathers are this shiny. Some of them are a little bit more matte, or some are just in a slightly different level of sheen. So for example, this Business Affinity, this is also caviar leather, but it is slightly glossy, but not as glossy as my classic flap. And also if you look very closely at the grain, you can see that the grain is so much bigger on this Business Affinity compared to the classic flap. So there is variation between the two different caviars, and it's just dependent on whether you like it or not. A common question that I get is about this, where the leather doesn't meet all the way to the other side and it folds back on itself, and it's got this stitching on the back. And this is not something that is a defect, but it's actually quite normal because they need to end the leather somehow. A new update of the authenticity would be the authenticity cards. So they stopped making these in their newer bags since I think summer of last year in 2021, and they stopped the serial sticker over here. So you can see that there's a little sticker at the back, and that is supposed to be matching with this authenticity card, and I just keep that in the back. But they've recently stopped doing that, and I kind of don't understand why, because it's a very easy way to find out which year that the bag is from, and then you can find out which collections it's coming from. So it's kind of a nice document of when a bag is made. So you have the 1 series, the 2 series, and it keeps going. Whereas now they have these chip designs, and it's at the back of the bag. This chip has the CC logo, but also a number and letter chip inside, and that is supposed to be registered with your name and also your purchase history. I can see how this is working if you do buy this bag in store, but in terms of buying from the pre-loved market, it may be quite a difficult way to actually identify whether the bag is a replica or an authentic. By comparing the different date code and also the year that it was made, which collection it came from, then that would be harder to source. Another thing I want to mention is the dust bag for this, and this is the dust bag that the Chanel Classic Flap comes with. This is the older design where it has the more drawn feature of the classic front, And then it has the Coco Chanel with the Karl Lagerfeld signature on there. And it also has the back pocket as well as the main pocket. Most of the other Chanel bags, they come with this black dust bag, and it's a more of a cottony feel. So it's a little bit rougher, so I don't really feel like this is as luxurious compared to this one. This is such an iconic bag to have. Something that may be a little bit too common, but with the scarcity of buying these bags new, then this may be a big turning point for Chanel. So if you like this video, then check over here for more Chanel videos, and I will see you there. Bye!